The ancient mystery, the conference room aboard the Galactic Council's research station, hummed with the quiet chatter of a dozen different species. Commander Sarah Chen sat near the back, trying not to feel out of place among the galaxy's brightest minds. She was just a retired military communications officer after all. The woman next to her had 3 heads and had written 7 books on ancient languages. The being across the table was pure energy contained in a crystalline form and had lived for 4,000 years. Sarah adjusted her translator earpiece as the lead researcher, a tall Vexorian named Kelthor, activated the central holographic display. Immediately the room filled with images of ruins scattered across multiple worlds. Each structure looked ancient, covered in strange metals that somehow still gleamed despite millennia of exposure to the elements. For 347 standard years, we have studied these sites, Kelthor began, his forearms gesturing at the floating images. We have found them on 17 different planets, always in remote locations, always perfectly preserved. The technology within these structures functions as if built yesterday, yet our dating methods confirm they are at least 50,000 years old. Sarah leaned forward, genuinely interested now. The ruins were beautiful in a cold, efficient way. They reminded her of military bunkers, actually, though she kept that thought to herself. The most puzzling aspect, continued Kelthor, is the language. Every site contains the same patterns of light and sound, rhythmic pulses that repeat in sequences. We believe this is the key to activating the technology fully, but despite our best efforts, we cannot decipher it. The hologram changed, showing what looked like recordings of the patterns. Lights flashed in quick bursts, followed by longer pulses, then quick bursts again. Sound accompanied the visual display, beeps and tones that created a strange rhythm. Our finest xenolinguists have analyzed these patterns, a Thraxian researcher added, her scales shimmering blue with frustration. We have compared them to over 40,000 known languages, both current and extinct. Our quantum computers have run billions of simulations. We have found nothing. That's where humanity comes in, Kelthor said, his eyes turning to Sarah. Your species joined the Council only 20 years ago, but you bring fresh perspectives. Perhaps your minds work differently enough to see what we have missed. Sarah felt dozens of eyes on her. Some looked hopeful. Others looked skeptical. Humans were still the new kids on the galactic block after all. Their technology was primitive compared to most Council races. Their lifespans were short, but they had proven useful in unexpected ways before. I'm honored, Sarah said carefully, but I'm not a linguist. I'm just a communications officer. Well, was. I'm retired now. Sometimes the best insights come from unexpected places, Kelthor replied. We've invited several human experts to join our research team. You're here because of your military background. We thought perhaps these patterns might have tactical or strategic significance that civilian researchers might miss. That made sense, Sarah supposed. The military had always been good at codes and signals. She had spent 20 years managing communications for fleet operations, coordinating everything from simple supply requests to complex battle plans. She knew a thing or two about getting messages across clearly and efficiently. When do we start? She asked. Tomorrow, Kelthor said. We depart for Kepler 442b, the site where the patterns are clearest and strongest. Perhaps seeing them in person will inspire new theories. The meeting continued for another hour, with various researchers presenting their past attempts at translation. Sarah listened carefully, taking notes on her datapad. The aliens had tried everything. They had analyzed the mathematical relationships between the pulses. They had looked for astronomical alignments. They had even tried treating the patterns as musical notation or DNA sequences. Nothing had worked. As the meeting ended and researchers filed out, Sarah stayed behind, watching the recording of the patterns repeat on the hologram. There was something almost familiar about them, tickling at the back of her mind, but she couldn't quite place it. Commander Chen? Kelthor approached her. You seem thoughtful. Just trying to get a feel for it, Sarah said. How long are the patterns? Is it the same message repeating, or different messages? Mostly the same core sequence with variations, Kelthor explained. The longest recording we have is approximately 4 hours. It repeats a primary pattern every 7 minutes with shorter patterns interspersed between. And it's the same across all 17 sites? The core pattern, yes, but each site has unique additional sequences. We believe they might be location-specific information. But without understanding the base language, we can't be certain. Sarah nodded slowly. Can I get copies of all the recordings? I'd like to study them before we arrive at the site. Of course. I'll have them sent to your quarters. Kelthor paused, his expression unreadable to Sarah's human eyes. Commander, I should be honest. Many of my colleagues are skeptical about human involvement. They see your species as too young, too inexperienced. Some view this as a political gesture by the Council rather than a serious research decision. I understand, Sarah said, and she did. Humans had been exploring space for barely 2 centuries. Some of the researchers in that room were individually older than humanity's entire spacefaring history. But I believe fresh eyes are exactly what we need. Kelthor continued. We've been studying this for so long that we may have developed blind spots. Your perspective could be valuable precisely because you don't carry our assumptions. Sarah appreciated his honesty. I'll do my best. No promises, but I'll give it everything I've got. That night, alone in her quarters, Sarah played the recordings over and over. The patterns danced across her screen, lights pulsing in their mysterious rhythm. Short bursts, long bursts, pauses, repetitions. She found herself tapping her fingers along with them, trying to feel their structure. Her military training kicked in automatically. She began categorizing the patterns, looking for structure and organization. How many distinct elements were there? Short pulses and long pulses seemed to be the basic components. The pauses between them varied in length. It almost looked like a binary system, but not quite. She thought about communications across her career. Radio signals, laser bursts, quantum entanglement messaging. Each had its own protocols and structures. Each was designed to convey information as efficiently as possible, because in military operations, clarity could mean the difference between life and death. These ancient patterns had that same quality of intentional design. They weren't random. They weren't artistic. They were functional. Whoever made them had a message they desperately wanted others to understand. But what message? And why had the galaxy's best minds failed to crack it for over 3 centuries? Sarah rubbed her tired eyes and decided to get some sleep. Tomorrow they would arrive at Kepler 442b, and she would see the source of the mystery firsthand. Maybe standing in those ancient ruins would provide the insight that countless hours of analysis had failed to reveal. As she drifted off to sleep, the patterns continued to play in her mind. Short, 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 long, 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 short, 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 over and over. Familiar somehow, like a half-remembered song from childhood. She would figure it out. She had to. The galaxy was counting on it. The unexpected translation. The shuttle descended through Kepler 442b's atmosphere, and Sarah pressed her face against the viewport to get her first real look at the ruins. They sprawled across a vast plateau, metallic structures that caught the orange light of the planet's sun. From above, they looked like a military installation, all straight lines and functional design. No decoration, no artistic flourishes, just pure utility. Impressive, isn't it? Said Dr. Yenna, a Qualixian researcher who had been studying the site for 15 years. Her tentacles wrapped around a support rail as the shuttle banked for landing. Every measurement we take reveals new mysteries. The materials are unknown to our databases. The power source still functions but operates on principles we cannot identify. Sarah nodded, still staring at the structures below. Something about them felt wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Not wrong as in dangerous, but wrong as in out of place, like finding a computer terminal in a medieval castle. The shuttle touched down on a landing pad that had somehow remained clear of debris despite 50 millennia. As Sarah stepped out, she felt the planet's slightly heavier gravity pulling at her. The air was breathable but tasted metallic. Temperature was cool, maybe 15 degrees Celsius. Kelthor waited at the entrance to the main structure, along with a dozen other researchers bustling about with equipment. Commander Chen, welcome. We've prepared a tour of the primary sites. Dr. Yenna will guide you while I coordinate the new scanning procedures. Thank you, Sarah said, following Yenna toward a massive doorway. The entrance was easily 5 meters tall, though the actual door was proportioned for someone about human-sized. Interesting. Inside, the facility was remarkably well preserved. Lights flickered on as they entered, responding to their presence. The walls were smooth metal, unmarked by time or wear. Corridors branched off in logical patterns, and Sarah found herself automatically mapping the layout in her head. Main corridor, side passages, what looked like storage rooms or barracks. This area appears to be administrative, Yenna explained, her translator rendering her whistling speech into flat English. We've found what we believe are workstations, though we cannot access their systems. Everything requires the code, the language we cannot decipher. They pass through several chambers, each filled with dormant equipment. Consoles with dark screens, panels with unlit indicators, machines whose purpose remained mysterious. Sarah's trained eye caught details others might miss. The ergonomics of the workstations, designed for beings about her size. The strategic placement of what looked like security checkpoints. The efficient flow of the corridor system. It looks military, she said without thinking. Yenna's tentacles curled in confusion. Military? We've theorized these were research facilities or perhaps religious sites. Why do you say military? Sarah gestured around. The layout. Everything's designed for quick movement and clear sight lines. Those panels near the doors could be security stations. The way the corridors connect allows for multiple routes to each area, good for both evacuation and tactical movement. And look at the walls, they're thick, reinforced. This place was built to withstand attack. Fascinating, Yenna said, making notes on her datapad. No one has considered a military purpose. We assumed an advanced precursor race would be beyond such primitive concerns as warfare. Sarah kept that thought to herself, but history had taught her that advanced technology and military conflict usually went hand in hand. The more powerful the weapons, the more important the defenses. They reached what Yenna called the sacred chamber, a large circular room at the facility's heart. The moment Sarah stepped inside, she heard it clearly. The patterns, the mysterious language playing from multiple sources. Lights pulsed on the walls in synchronized rhythm. Speakers she couldn't see broadcast the sounds throughout the room. Short, short, short. Long, long, long. Short, short, short. Sarah froze. This is where the patterns are strongest, Yenna was saying. We believe this might be a central control room or perhaps a temple. The patterns play continuously, as they have for 50,000 years. We've tried— Oh my God, Sarah interrupted, her hand covering her mouth. Yenna's tentacles stiffened. Commander? Are you well? Sarah started laughing. She couldn't help it. 347 years, 17 planets, the galaxy's greatest minds, and it was so obvious, so incredibly obvious that she couldn't believe no one had seen it. Commander Chen, please, Yenna said, sounding offended. This is serious research. If you find something amusing, perhaps you should— Do you have a pencil? Sarah asked, still chuckling. Or pen? Stylus? Anything to write with? Yes, but why? Just give it to me, please. Yenna produced a stylus from her equipment pouch, handing it over with visible reluctance. Sarah knelt on the floor, using the stylus on her datapad screen to transcribe what she was hearing. Short, 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 dot, 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 long, 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 dash, 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 short, 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 dot, dot, dot. That's SOS, Sarah said, her laughter fading as the implications hit her. The first part is SOS, it's Morse code. Morse code? Yenna repeated slowly. Old Earth communication system, Sarah explained, her fingers flying as she transcribed more of the pattern, 19th to 20th century mainly. Before digital communications became standard, we used to tap out messages using long and short signals. Ships used it, military used it. Even civilians learned it for emergencies. She kept writing, the pattern becoming letters, the letters becoming words. Where NIN her blood ran cold, what does it say? Yenna asked, leaning over Sarah's shoulder. Sarah's hand was shaking now as she continued transcribing. QUARANTINEZONE, no, she whispered. DONOTACTIVATE, Commander, what does it say? Yenna insisted. Sarah looked up at her, then at the pulsing lights around them. It says, warning, quarantine zone, do not activate. The room fell silent except for the continued pattern. Yenna's color shifted to a pale blue. That's impossible. This is a 50,000-year-old precursor site. Your Morse code is only a few centuries old. How could— I don't know, Sarah said, standing up. But I know what I'm reading, and that message is clear. We need to tell Kelthor immediately. If someone's been trying to activate these systems— She didn't finish the sentence. The implications were too frightening. They ran back through the corridors, finding Kelthor in the main control area surrounded by equipment and researchers. Kelthor, Sarah called. Stop everything. I've translated the message. The room went silent. Every researcher turned to stare at her. You've translated it? Kelthor said slowly. In one day? Commander, that's not possible. We've spent centuries. It's Morse code, Sarah said flatly. An old Earth communication system. The message is a warning. It says, warning, quarantine zone, do not activate. The silence stretched. Then everyone started talking at once. Impossible, shouted a Thraxian researcher. Human codes in a precursor site? Another voice called out. This must be some kind of hoax, or contamination from human exploration. Kelthor raised all forearms for silence. Commander Chen, I need you to explain this clearly. You're saying this ancient site, older than human civilization itself, is using a primitive Earth communication system. I know how it sounds, Sarah said, but I'm certain. I spent 20 years working with communications, including emergency protocols. Morse code is still taught to military personnel for backup communications. I know it cold. That message is definitely Morse code, and it definitely says to not activate anything. But how? Kelthor asked, and Sarah could hear the confusion in his voice. How is this possible? I don't know, Sarah admitted. But I think we need to figure it out before anyone tries to turn anything on. That warning is there for a reason. She looked around at the assembled researchers, seeing doubt and suspicion in their alien faces. They thought she was wrong or lying or somehow contaminating their precious discovery. But Sarah knew what she had heard. And deep in her gut, she knew that warning was meant to be understood. The question was, why was it in Morse code? And who had left it there? The impossible truth. 3 days later, Sarah stood in front of the entire research team, datapad in hand, with translations of 7 different sites displayed on the holographic screen behind her. The mood in the room was tense. Half the researchers looked at her with grudging curiosity, the other half with open hostility. Site Delta 7, she began, pointing to the first translation. Coordinates 47.2 north, 183.9 east. Depth markers for underground installation. Warning about cave-ins in Sector 4. She moved to the next. Site Gamma 12. Technical specifications for what appears to be a power distribution network. Maintenance schedule included. This proves nothing, Dr. Vexelar interrupted, his scales flushed red with anger. You could be making this up. Morse code, you call it? A primitive system from a primitive species? Why should we believe these ruins use your technology? Sarah kept her voice level. Because I can prove it's Morse code. The system uses only 2 elements, short signals and long signals. The timing between them creates distinct characters. 26 letters, 10 numbers, and a handful of punctuation marks. Every message I've decoded follows this exact structure. Show us, Kelthor said quietly. He had been silent for most of the presentation, but Sarah could tell he was thinking hard. Sarah pulled up a teaching file on her datapad. This is the International Morse Code Chart, standardized on Earth in the early 20th century. Letter A is dot dash, letter B is dash dot dot dot, letter C is dash dot dash dot, and so on. She played a recording from the ruins alongside the standard chart. The patterns match perfectly. A Qualixian researcher named Tevrix spoke up. But Commander, the temporal problem remains. These sites are 50,000 years old. Human civilization is barely 10,000 years old. Morse code itself is only a few centuries old. How do you explain this? I can't, Sarah admitted. Not yet. But the translations are real. Every site I've checked contains coherent messages in Morse code. Instructions, warnings, technical data. They're not random. They mean something. She pulled up another translation, this one from the site on Kepler 442b. This message includes a date stamp, year 2157. The room erupted in noise. That's impossible. She's falsifying data. This is a waste of time. Enough. Kelthor's voice boomed through his translator. The room fell silent. Commander Chen, are you certain about this date? Yes, Sarah said. The message includes a standard Earth calendar date, October 15th, 2157. That's 170 years from now. From humanity's perspective, the implications hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Dr. Yenna spoke slowly, her tentacles coiled tight with thought. If the date is from humanity's future and the sites are from the past, then these aren't precursor ruins at all. They're human ruins somehow sent backward in time. That's impossible, Vexelar stated flatly. Time travel is theoretical at best. No species has ever achieved it. No species has ever achieved it yet, Sarah corrected. But if these ruins are from 2157, then humans will figure it out. Or will have figured it out. Time travel makes verb tenses complicated. Kelthor approached the holographic display, studying the translations carefully. Let's accept this hypothesis for a moment. Humans from the future built these installations and somehow sent them backward in time. Why? What purpose would that serve? Sarah had been thinking about that for 3 days straight. The warnings. Every site includes warnings. Quarantine zones, dangerous sectors, instructions not to activate certain systems. Whoever built these places wanted to make sure they were used correctly. Or maybe not used at all. But why scatter them across 17 planets? Tevrix asked. Why not just build them in human space? I don't know, Sarah said. Maybe these planets become important somehow. Maybe this is where humanity expands to. Or maybe, she paused, a chilling thought occurring to her. Maybe these are defensive positions. Against what? Yenna asked. Before Sarah could answer, her datapad beeped. A priority message from the team working in the lower levels of the Kepler 442b facility. She opened it and felt her blood run cold. What is it? Kelthor asked, seeing her expression. They found another message. A long one. And it's... Sarah's voice trailed off as she read. It's addressed to me specifically. To you? Vexlar's tone was sharp with suspicion. How convenient. I don't mean to me personally, Sarah clarified, reading faster. It's addressed to Commander Sarah Chen, service number 77342819 Alpha. That's my military ID code. My exact ID code. The room exploded in conversation again, but Sarah barely heard it. She was reading the message, and every word made her more afraid. Chen, the message began. If you're reading this, don't let them activate the gateway. Trust Protocol Omega-7. Protocol Omega-7. Sarah knew that designation. It was a classified military contingency plan, known only to senior officers. She had been briefed on it 3 years ago when she made commander. It was designed for first contact scenarios with hostile forces, particularly threats that conventional military doctrine couldn't handle. Extra-dimensional threats. I need to contact Earth Military Command, Sarah said abruptly. Right now. This is beyond archaeological research. This is a military matter. You can't be serious, Vexlar protested. You find a message with your name on it and suddenly this becomes a human military operation? This is clearly a fabrication. It's not a fabrication, Kelthor said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. I've been reviewing Commander Chen's translations. I had our quantum computers analyze the patterns independently, without telling them what to look for. They confirmed that the signals match the Morse code structure Commander Chen provided. The mathematics are consistent. The language is real, but the implications... Tevrix started. The implications are that we're dealing with something far more complex than ancient ruins. Kelthor finished. Commander Chen, you mentioned a gateway. What gateway? Sarah pulled up the message on the main display so everyone could read it. The message mentions a gateway, and it warns not to activate it. Combined with Protocol Omega-7, she took a deep breath. Protocol Omega-7 deals with threats from other dimensions, things that don't come from normal space. The room went very quiet. You're saying these ruins are weapons? Yenna asked softly. I'm saying they might be defensive installations, Sarah replied, built by humans from the future, sent back in time to guard against something. Something dangerous enough that they had to prepare for it 50,000 years in advance. This is insane, Vexlar said, but his voice lacked conviction now. Kelthor was studying the message intently. Commander, this gateway they mention. Do we know where it is? Sarah's datapad beeped again. Another message from the lower levels team. She opened it and read the first line. We found it, she said. The main chamber in the lowest level. They're calling it a dimensional aperture. They say it looks like it could be activated. And some of them want to try, Kelthor said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Sarah confirmed. Dr. Pelthar's team believes activating it might prove what these installations were really for. Kelthor looked at her seriously. What do you think? Sarah thought about the warnings. The carefully placed messages in a code that only humans could easily read. The reference to her specific military protocol. The date from the future. All of it pointed to one conclusion. I think we're standing in the middle of a battlefield, she said. And the war hasn't started yet. Or maybe it has, just not in our time. I think future humans fought something terrible, and they left these installations as insurance, as a way to protect the past if something went wrong in the future. Then we shouldn't activate anything, Yenna said. Try telling that to Pelthar, Kelthor replied grimly. He's been studying these sites for 2 decades. Now that we might finally understand their purpose, he'll want to test the theory. Sarah's military training kicked in. We need to lock down the lower levels. No one activates anything until we understand what we're dealing with. This is still a council research operation, Vexlar protested. You can't just take command. Watch me, Sarah said, already moving toward the door. Kelthor, I need your authority to secure that chamber. Kelthor hesitated for only a moment. Then he nodded. You have it. Let's go. As they ran through the corridors toward the lower levels, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The message had been addressed to her for a reason. Future Sarah, or someone who knew her, had predicted she would be here at this exact moment. The question was, had they also predicted she would arrive in time to stop whatever was about to happen? The Hidden War Sarah reached the lower levels just as Dr. Pelthar was preparing to activate the gateway. The chamber was enormous, easily 100 meters across and dominated by a circular structure that looked like a massive ring standing vertically. Its surface was covered in the same metallic material as the rest of the facility. But this metal seemed to shimmer and shift when Sarah looked directly at it. Stop, she shouted, her voice echoing through the chamber. Pelthar, an elderly Thraxian with faded green scales, turned slowly from his console. Commander Chen, I heard about your translation work. Fascinating, truly. But now we must verify what these installations actually do. The message says not to activate it, Sarah said, approaching carefully. She could see that Pelthar had a team of 5 researchers with him, all focused on their equipment. It specifically warns against opening the gateway. A warning from the future? Pelthar's laugh was dry. Commander, you ask us to believe an impossible tale. Time travel. Humans building advanced technology millennia before they evolve. Messages addressed to you specifically. It's too convenient, too fantastic. The Morse code is real, Kelthor said, entering behind Sarah. Our analysis confirmed it. Then perhaps humans visited these sites before and left their marks, Pelthar countered. Or perhaps the code is a coincidence, a pattern we're interpreting through a human lens. Either way, 300 years of research has led to this moment. I will not stop now because of a supposed warning. Sarah moved closer to the gateway, studying it. Up close, she could see that it wasn't solid. The surface rippled like water, but slower, more deliberately. Strange symbols covered the ring's inner surface, and she realized with a start that she could read some of them. Not Morse code this time, but English. Actual written English, dimensional aperture Mark 7, she read aloud. Authorized personnel only. Security clearance Omega required. Pelthar's team stopped working, staring at the ring. You see these markings? Sarah asked. Human language. Human security protocols. This isn't a precursor device. It's ours. Or it will be ours. Then we should understand it, Pelthar argued. If it's human technology, surely you should want to activate it to see what your species achieved. Not if it gets us all killed, Sarah shot back. She pulled out her datapad and opened the files on Protocol Omega 7. Most of it was classified, but she could share the basics. Protocol Omega 7 is a contingency plan for extra-dimensional threats, entities that exist outside normal spacetime, things that don't follow the rules of our universe. She showed them the files, the theoretical frameworks, the emergency procedures. We developed this protocol based on quantum theories, hypothetical scenarios. We've never actually encountered an extra-dimensional threat, but the fact that this protocol exists and that the future message specifically references it means that humans will encounter such threats. And apparently, they're bad enough that we needed to build defenses 50,000 years in the past. One of Pelthar's researchers, a young Vexorian, spoke up nervously. Doctor, if Commander Chen is correct, activating this could be dangerous. Or it could be enlightening, Pelthar replied. We need data, not speculation. The activation sequence is already prepared. All I need to do is initialize it. Don't, Sarah said firmly. I'm asking you as someone who's spent 20 years in military service, someone who's seen what happens when protocols are ignored. Don't do this. Pelthar's hand hovered over the console. For a moment, Sarah thought he might listen. Then he shook his head. Science requires risks, Commander. We cannot let fear of the unknown stop us from learning. His finger pressed the button. The gateway hummed to life. The rippling surface became more agitated, colors swirling within it that Sarah couldn't name. The temperature in the room dropped sharply and her breath came out in visible puffs. The symbols around the ring began to glow with a sickly green light. "Shut it down," Sarah yelled. "Now!" But Pelthar was staring at the gateway in wonder, not fear. Through the aperture, something was becoming visible. Shapes, movement, things that hurt to look at directly, that seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. Then the alarms started. They came from everywhere at once, blaring from speakers Sarah hadn't known existed. Red lights flashed along the walls, and throughout it all a voice spoke in clear, perfect English. "Warning, dimensional breach detected. Initiating containment protocols. Warning, dimensional breach detected." Sarah's military training took over. "Everyone back! Get away from the gateway!" Most of the researchers listened, scrambling toward the exits. But Pelthar stood frozen, watching as something began to emerge from the aperture. It looked like a tentacle at first, but as it pushed through into their reality, Sarah realized it was more like a crack in space itself, a tear in the fabric of the universe. "Fascinating," Pelthar whispered. The facility's automated systems activated. Panels in the wall slid open, revealing weapons Sarah couldn't identify. They fired beams of coherent energy at the breach, pushing back against the intrusion. The gateway flickered and the emerging entity retreated slightly. "Defense systems online," the English voice announced. "Threat level critical. Initiating lockdown." Heavy doors slammed down across all the exits. Sarah and the others were trapped in the chamber with the gateway and whatever was trying to come through it. "Override," Sarah shouted at the facility's systems. "Authorization code Chen 77342819 Alpha." To her shock, it worked. The facility's voice responded immediately. "Authorization confirmed," Commander Chen recognized. "Awaiting orders. Close the gateway. Emergency shutdown. Unable to comply. Aperture must cycle down slowly to prevent catastrophic spatial collapse. Estimated time, 4 minutes 30 seconds, 4 minutes. Sarah looked at the gateway, at the thing pushing through that was now fighting against the automated defenses. 4 minutes was a long time in combat. "Can you strengthen the containment?" she asked. "Affirmative." Diverting all available power to defensive systems. The weapons intensified their fire. The entity shrieked, a sound that bypassed Sarah's ears and resonated directly in her skull. It was the sound of rage and hunger and something else, something alien and wrong. Kelthor was at her side, his 4 arms wrapped around his body protectively. "What is that thing?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "But I think this is what the warnings were about. This is what future humans fought against." The entity pushed harder, more of its impossible form emerging into their reality. The defensive systems were holding it back, but barely. Sarah could see cracks forming in the structure around the gateway, reality itself straining under the pressure. 3 minutes to shut down, the facility announced. Sarah made a decision. "All personnel get to the sealed emergency shelters." The facility mentioned them in the original messages. "Follow the green lights." Green lights had indeed appeared along the floor, leading to reinforced chambers. The researchers ran, even Pelthar finally moving, his earlier confidence replaced by terror. "You too," Sarah told Kelthor. "What about you?" he asked. "Someone needs to make sure this thing closes properly. The facility recognizes my authorization. I might be able to help." She gave him a slight smile. "Besides, I'm military. This is what we train for." Kelthor hesitated, then nodded and ran for the shelter. Sarah turned back to the gateway, watching the entity strain against the defenses. "Facility, can you tell me what we're dealing with?" "Entity classified as Class Omega threat," the system replied. "Extra-dimensional predator. Feeds on spatial temporal energy. Known for consuming entire planets and alternate timelines. How do we kill it?" "You don't. You contain it, push it back, and seal the breach. That is the purpose of this installation." Sarah understood now. These weren't research stations or temples. They were guardhouses. Prisons built to hold back horrors from beyond reality. And somehow in the future, humans had become the wardens. 2 minutes to shut down. The entity was fully in their reality now, a massive thing of writhing non-geometry that made Sarah's eyes water. The defenses were weakening, the weapons firing less frequently as power drained. Facility, reroute all non-essential power to weapons. Life support, gravity, everything. Just keep firing. Confirmed. The gravity in the room weakened and Sarah felt herself becoming lighter. The air grew thin, but the weapons blazed brighter, pushing the entity back inch by impossible inch. 1 minute to shut down. Sarah's vision was getting blurry from lack of oxygen. She gripped the console, watching the countdown. 30 seconds. 20. 10. The gateway snapped shut. The entity vanished, cut off from their reality. The defensive systems powered down. Regular lights came back on and Sarah gasped as oxygen flooded back into the room. She had survived. They all had. But now she understood the truth. Somewhere in humanity's future there was a war. A war against things that shouldn't exist. And humanity had fought it, won it, and built these installations to make sure they stayed won. The question was, why had that message been addressed to her specifically? What role was she supposed to play in all this? She had a feeling she was about to find out. The Veterans Gambit. The emergency shelters opened after the all-clear signal, and researchers poured back into the main chamber. They found Sarah sitting against the wall, breathing hard, staring at the now dormant gateway. Kelthor rushed to her side, helping her to her feet. "What happened?" he asked. "I happened," Sarah said quietly. "The facility recognized my authorization. It let me control the defenses." She looked at him seriously. "This whole place is designed for human operators. Future humans. It's waiting for us." Before anyone could respond, the facility's voice spoke again. "Commander Chen, priority message available. Authorization required for playback." Sarah straightened despite her exhaustion. "Authorization Chen 77342819 Alpha. Play message." A holographic projection appeared in the center of the room. It showed a woman in military uniform, older than Sarah but unmistakably her. Same face, same eyes, just marked by more years and harder experiences. The future Sarah looked exhausted but determined. "If you're seeing this, then you've survived the first breach," the hologram said. "Good. That means the timeline is still mostly intact. I don't have much time, so listen carefully." Present-day Sarah felt chills run down her spine, hearing her own voice from the future. In the year 2149, humanity made first contact with an extra-dimensional species. The hologram continued. "Not through choice. They found us, or rather they found a way into our reality. What followed was 8 years of war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. We called it the Breach War." The hologram's expression darkened. "We won, but barely. Billions died across dozens of worlds. We pushed them back and sealed the rifts, but we knew they would try again. So we built these installations and used experimental time displacement technology to send them back, far back, before humans even evolved. Insurance against the future. But time travel is paradoxical," future Sarah went on. "By placing these installations in the past, we created a bootstrap loop. The facilities exist because we built them in the future, but the future only happened because the facilities existed in the past. It's circular, self-reinforcing. As long as the loop holds, reality remains stable." Pelthar had emerged from the shelter and was watching the hologram with wide eyes. "Incredible," he breathed. "The installations are programmed to respond to human military authorization codes," the future Sarah explained. "Specifically to respond to my codes because I was the one who designed the time displacement protocol. I've encoded them into the facility's core systems. They'll only fully activate for me or for someone with identical genetic and authorization markers." Present Sarah touched her chest, understanding. The message had been for her specifically because she was literally the only person who could fully control these installations. "Here's what you need to know," the hologram said. "The entities we fought, they exist outside normal time. From their perspective, they're attacking all points in history simultaneously. These installations create a defensive barrier across time itself. As long as they remain active and properly maintained, the breaches stay sealed." The hologram paused, seeming to look directly at present Sarah. "I know this is a lot to take in. I remember being you, standing where you are, learning all this for the first time. It's terrifying. But you need to step up. The Council needs to understand what we're dealing with. These installations must be protected, maintained, and expanded." "Expanded?" Sarah whispered. "We only managed to place 17 installations before the time displacement window closed," future Sarah said. "It's not enough. The entities are probing for weaknesses constantly. You need to convince the Council to build more, using the blueprints stored in the facilities. Humans can't do it alone. We need the galaxy's help." The hologram's expression softened slightly. "I won't lie to you. The path ahead is difficult. You'll face skepticism, political resistance, and challenges you can't imagine yet. But you'll also find allies. Kelthor is a good one, start there. Trust him. Trust yourself. One last thing, the hologram said. The entities, we eventually learned their true nature. They're not evil, not in any way we understand. They're hungry. Their dimension is dying, collapsing. They're trying to escape into ours to survive. It doesn't make them less dangerous, but it makes them predictable. They'll never stop trying, so we can never stop guarding. The hologram began to fade. Good luck, Commander. Or should I say, good luck to us both. Time travel makes pronouns weird. The message ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Finally, Dr. Yenna spoke. What do we do now? Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She was a retired communications officer. She'd wanted a quiet job as a civilian liaison. Instead, she'd stumbled into humanity's future, into a war that spanned time itself. But she was still military. And military personnel didn't run from duty, no matter how unexpected it was. We do what the message said, Sarah announced. We protect these installations. We study them properly, carefully, without activating any more gateways. She looked pointedly at Pelthar, who had the grace to look ashamed. Then we contact the council, she continued. All of it, not just the research division. This is bigger than archaeology. It's a matter of galactic security. They won't believe it, Vexillar said. Time travel. Future wars. Messages from the past. It sounds insane. They saw the entity, Kelthor pointed out. They heard the facility respond to Commander Chen's authorization. They have the Morse code translations. The evidence is substantial, Sarah nodded. We present everything. Let them draw their own conclusions. But I think they'll believe it, because the alternative is worse. The alternative is that these installations remain a mystery, vulnerable to more incidents like this one. She walked to the gateway, placing her hand on its surface. It was cool now, inert. The hologram said these places need to be maintained and expanded. That means humans will need to work with the council, share technology, build a defense network across time and space. That's unprecedented, Yenna said. The council has never undertaken a project on such a scale. Then it's time they started, Sarah replied. Because those entities are out there, pressing against the barriers, looking for ways through. And if these installations fail, if the defenses collapse, then everything, every species, every planet, every moment in history becomes vulnerable. She turned to face the assembled researchers, seeing uncertainty and fear in their alien faces, but also curiosity, determination, and the beginnings of understanding. I'm just a communications officer, Sarah said. I'm not special. I'm not a hero. But I have the authorization codes and I understand the situation. So I'm taking command of this project with council approval. We're going to turn these archaeological sites into what they were always meant to be. Guardhouses, watchposts, the first line of defense against threats from beyond reality. And we'll need all of you, she continued. Every species, every skill set. Humans can't do this alone. We were never meant to. The message came from the future, but it's for all of us. Because those entities don't care about species boundaries. They'll consume everything if given the chance. Kelthor stepped forward. I'll support you before the council. My testimony will carry weight, as will mine, Yenna added. Even Pelthar nodded slowly. I was wrong to activate the gateway. But I can help with the research, the proper research into how these systems work. One by one, the other researchers voiced their support. Not all of them, not yet, but enough. It was a start. Sarah felt something she hadn't felt since retiring from military service. Purpose. Not the purpose of following orders or completing missions, but something deeper. The purpose of standing between danger and those who couldn't protect themselves. The purpose of being a guardian. All right, she said. Let's get to work. We have installations to secure, council members to convince, and a timeline to protect. No pressure. There were nervous laughs at that, but also nods of determination. As the researchers began organizing teams and making plans, Sarah found herself alone for a moment near the gateway. She pulled out her datapad and composed a message in Morse code, simple and direct. To whoever finds this, you're welcome. Stay vigilant. She programmed it into the facility systems, set to broadcast on a delay, to be found by future researchers or perhaps by past ones. Time travel made such distinctions meaningless. The war was over, at least the future war. But the watch had just begun, and Sarah Chen, retired communications officer, had somehow become its first guardian. Not because she was special, not because she was chosen, but because she was there, because she could do the job, because someone had to. She thought about her future self, the older woman in the hologram who had lived through the breach war and built these defenses, that Sarah had done impossible things, had shouldered unimaginable burdens. But she had started here, in this moment making the same choice present Sarah was making now, to step up, to take responsibility, to guard the gates. All right, future me, Sarah whispered to herself. Let's see how I become you. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.